Major shock, millionaire's daughter pulls cleaner's hair. His tears say it all, right there, in the middle of opulence and vibrancy, the air crackled with tension. It was a sunny afternoon at the lavishly decorated estate of the Whitmores, a family rich enough to touch the sky. Laughter echoed off the marble floors, but it abruptly halted when Jenna Whitmore, the golden-haired princess of this world, did the unthinkable. With a sudden and unsettling yank, she pulled the hair of Marco, the unsuspecting cleaner, who was pushed haplessly into the swirling chaos of the grand party. Gasps filled the room. Eyes widened. Shock painted the faces of the guests. Fear twisted Marco's stomach as Jenna's grip tightened, forcing his head to turn. For a split second, time stood still. The rich, shimmering champagne bubbling in flutes was forgotten, the music dulled, all that mattered was the look on Marco's face. His wide brown eyes glistened with confusion and a deep, unshed pain that made everyone hold their breath. Jenna's delicate fingers, adorned with rings fitting for a queen, had unleashed a storm, leaving everyone to wonder, why? Those who witnessed the scene couldn't look away. Murmurs rippled through the crowd like the gentle rise of a tide. What's wrong with her? Someone whispered. Others exchanged distressed glances. It was as if the universe had twisted the very fabric of reality, creating this bizarre moment where privilege met vulnerability. Marco, his heart racing like a trapped bird, felt a lump rise in his throat. He'd come to clean not to be humiliated. 1 second, he was lost in his thoughts, and the next, he was thrust into the spotlight, his dignity hanging by a thread. It was a surreal disconnect, a moment where he felt both small and exposed before the million-dollar gallery of human smiles, winks, and raised eyebrows. And the next breath, Jenna's laughter pierced through the lingering silence. Was it real or just a mask for her own insecurities, cloaked in layers of silk and gold? She pulled closer, tugging on his hair again, drawing the eyes of all who dared watch. Marco bit his lip, struggling to maintain his composure. A wave of anger surged within him, battling alongside the hurt washing over his heart like a tidal wave. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Then, something shifted. Marco's eyes met the gaze of another guest, a shadowy figure in the corner. Their look said everything, belief and disbelief intertwined. Who else understood the gravity of this moment? Could someone save him from his collision with wealth? He could almost hear the heartbeat of the crowd, pounding louder as Jenna looked ready to unleash more chaos. The laughter faded, replaced by whispers like the rustle of leaves in a forest, each secret sound echoing fear. What would happen next? Would Marco's world remain shattered, or could he reclaim his dignity amongst the towering walls of privilege? The tension wove tighter, suspense doubling on itself, as Marco prepared to stand up or stay down. The laughter faded into a hushed murmur, the sound ricocheting off polished marble like a warning bell. Jenna didn't relinquish her grip. Did she feel the weight of the room? Did she sense the eyes boring into her? The gaze of each guest felt sharp, scrutinizing, as if they were stuck in an extended moment where time itself became suspicious. Marco's heart hammered against his ribs. Every second felt like an hour, each fleeting heartbeat a reminder of the world crashing down around him. Could he even breathe in this suffocating atmosphere? He wanted to scream, to shove her away, but the silence felt like a predator creeping in, waiting for him to falter. And then, something unexpected happened. In the chaos of forced laughter and unsettled glances, an older woman, impeccably dressed, stepped forward. Her eyebrows knitted together in a fierce combination of anger and concern. Was she here to help? Was she one of the few who saw beyond the superficial glamour? Jenna, stop this right now. She commanded, her voice cutting through the crowd like a knife. Jenna hesitated, surprise flickering across her face. The grip on Marco's hair loosened for just a moment, and in that instant, a tsunami of emotions surged within Marco: gratitude, confusion, and hunger for dignity, all battling to be felt, but the moment passed as quickly as it arrived. Jenna's smile turned wicked, a dangerous glimmer in her eye. "Oh, come on, Aunt Lisa. He doesn't mind, do you?" She turned back to Marco, her grip tightening again, and the tension in the air sizzled. What had begun as a plea for mercy from an ally turned into fresh fuel for her twisted game. The laughter in the room resumed, but it was darker. Marco's breath quickened, he felt cornered, forced to play the role Jenna had scripted for him. The weight of those eyes was almost unbearable. Would anyone rise to his defense, or was he forever trapped in this moment of humiliation? "Just let go of me," Marco whispered, voice barely above a murmur, pain lacing every word. The anger pulsed within him, urging him to break free. But his hands felt leaden, tied by a mixture of fear and doubt. If he fought, would it matter? Would it shatter the illusion both of him as the cleaner and of her as the untouchable princess? Just then, the shadowy figure he had noticed earlier stepped closer, their intentions still hidden beneath the cloak of the crowd. He could see a spark of defiance in their eyes and understanding. Was this a glimmer of hope, or a misinterpretation of the escape he so desperately craved? "Hey, Jenna," the voice was steady but urgent, cutting through the noise. "This is ridiculous. There are boundaries, and you're crossing them." Marco's heart raced at the sound. Someone was daring to challenge Jenna. But before he could process who it was, Marco's vision narrowed, a tunnel where the laughter faded. All that remained was his breath, heavy and jagged. As the room held its collective breath again, making the silence even more palpable, Marco realized that the power of the moment hung on the edge of a knife. Was it too late for him to reclaim his dignity, or was this just the beginning of an even darker four-way struggle? Questions hung thick in the air, the tension poised to burst at any moment. Could he find his voice? The answer lay teetering on the brink, the precarious precipice of humiliation versus strength. Marco's fate surged forward, and as he looked back at Jenna, uncertainty lingered like a shadow. What would he do next? What would happen now? The sudden voice came like a thunderclap, jolting every guest in the room. Marco's mind whirled as he tried to focus on the figure behind him, but all he managed to catch was a glimpse of a tall man with striking features, eyes bright with intensity. He was familiar, yet Marco couldn't place him. "Enough!" the man exclaimed, his tone sharp, a clear challenge to Jenna's twisted theatrics. The laughter dimmed, turning into whispers that crackled like static in the air. Jenna, momentarily stunned, released her grip on Marco's hair, her hands falling to her sides like a defeated soldier. She turned, her face a scrolling frame of emotions: confusion, fury, and something else, something almost desperate. "Who do you think you are?" she spat, her voice venomous but laced with apprehension. The man's shoulders squared, his chin lifted to meet her gaze head-on. "Someone who believes in dignity. You should try it sometime." They stood there, locked in a fierce stare down, while Marco stood frozen between them as if caught in a storm. In that instant, he felt more exposed than ever. His world and his reality peeled back layer by layer, revealing the raw panic beneath. What if this stranger was merely a fleeting hero who would vanish just as quickly as he had appeared? The thought gnawed at Marco, but hope flickered faintly. This was not a fairy tale, but was it possible to fight back? Around them, the spectators shifted, some leaning forward, driven by morbid curiosity, while others recoiled as if witnessing an accident they couldn't look away from. "How brave of you to defend a janitor." Jenna's laugh was cold, sharp as glass. "But let me remind you, you're at my party. You've forgotten your place." Marco's heart sank, fear constricting around him like a vice. He felt the swell of emotions rise within again, a mixture of longing for someone to step in for him and the crushing weight of humiliation. Was this how it was always going to be? "Enough!" Aunt Lisa interjected, her voice slicing through the tension. "Jenna, you need to apologize for your behavior." Another wave of shock rippled through the crowd. It was a bold move, one that caught Jenna off guard. She shot her aunt a venomous glare before chuckling to mask her embarrassment. Apologize? Jenna's voice dripped with sarcasm. For my little game. It's just harmless fun, isn't it? But deep down, was it really harmless? The room held its breath, and Marco recognized the sickly sweet scent of danger wafting through the air. Your definition of fun is twisted, the man shot back, his eyes flicking between Jenna and Marco as if gauging their souls. You're using him for your amusement. That's not entertainment, it's cruelty. In that moment, Marco saw it, the look of fear in Jenna's eyes, the way her bravado cracked, just for a sliver of a second. Beneath it all, something was unraveling. What if I just wanted to see how far I can push? Jenna said, her tone dark, challenging anyone to push back harder. Marco's heart thudded violently. Would he remain in silence, or would he summon the strength to speak? Stop. The word escaped Marco's lips like a whisper, barely audible over the murmur of the crowd. But it carried the weight of a cannon. Every eye turned to him as if the room had paused in time. Marco's breath felt hot in his chest, adrenaline surging through him. In that brief moment, he saw a flicker of understanding from the man, the silent rallying cry of solidarity. But what would unfold next? Would Jenna retaliate, or would this unexpected confrontation lead to something darker? As a heavy silence settled like thick fog, Marco felt the world tilt dangerously beneath him. The impending shock of what would happen next loomed over them, and all he could think was, could this truly be the moment he finally reclaimed his voice, or was it destined to be just another casualty of her game? The room shuddered under the weight of his word, the tension snapping taut as a bowstring. Marco felt the air thicken, shadows creeping in around the edges of sight. He opened his mouth to speak again, but the panic choked him, laying a frost over his breath. It was as if the world had drawn a collective gasp, all attention drawn like a moth to flame. Jenna's eyes flared, a tempest brewing behind her forced laughter. You think you can just say stop and everything will change? She stepped forward, her face twisted into a mask of feigned disbelief. What a delusion. The crowd shifted, anxious whispers ricocheting off the walls as her boldness flared. In that moment, Marco recognized the vulnerability buried within her bravado, a fractured reflection of his own fear. It was a truth that felt like poison on his tongue, but he swallowed hard, grappling with it. Could he unearth the courage to fight back, or was he still ensnared in her trap? I deserve respect, Marco stuttered, the words feeling foreign and alien as they slipped through his lips, raw like open flesh. Around him, the onlookers were frozen, caught between horror and twisted excitement, eyes darting back and forth like spectators at a boxing match. Respect? She echoed, feigning mock surprise. From a janitor? That's rich. She leaned closer, her voice laced with venom. You're nothing in my world. You always will be. The word struck him like a physical blow, each syllable a nail stabbing into the fragile construct of his self-worth. But that stranger, this unexpected ally, shifted beside him like an unfolding promise. You're not defined by your job or your status, the man said, stepping forward, closing the distance between them. It's time you realize that, Jenna. You live in a bubble where your money shields you from the reality of others. Jenna's expression flickered, disbelief morphing into something darker, something predatory. How dare you? You don't know me, she hissed, glimmering with a wild intensity that sent unease rippling through the room. Maybe it's time for you to find out, the stranger replied, voice steady and fierce, determination curving his lips into a small, defiant smile. Marco didn't know what to think. The chaos of emotions swirled within him, fear, anger, and an unfamiliar spark of hope. The stranger had not backed down, had thrown a lifeline in the midst of Jenna's storm. But Jenna wasn't finished. Her eyes narrowed, calculating, ready to retaliate. You think he's worth saving? You're wasting your time. He's beneath me, beneath everyone in this room. Just a nobody. Not a nobody, Marco heard himself say, louder now, feeling anger rise up to meet her poison. I'm someone. I matter, even if you don't believe it. A murmur swept through the crowd, like thunder rumbling in the distance. Marco's heart raced, adrenaline pulsing through him, a tide of anger that felt like drowning and flying all at once, a rush of freedom in the truth of his own voice. Jenna's facade cracked further, and for a second, something almost human flickered in her eyes, but she masked it quickly. With a swift movement, she swept her gaze across the crowd. "Get out!" she snarled. "Get all of you out. This party is over." The tension snapped like a twig underfoot. Patrons began to shuffle away, leaving uncertainty hovering in the air as they exchanged wary glances. Marco's heart sank. Had this confrontation only ignited her wrath? But then, he felt a touch on his shoulder. The stranger. "You spoke up," he murmured, pride in his voice. "That's the first step toward taking back your power." Marco looked around, the last few partygoers drifting out, leaving him and Jenna in the gathering shadows. There, surrounded by the remnants of shattered expectations, the challenge loomed. In the midst of Jenna's chaos, a question emerged in his mind, a dangerous, thrilling possibility: what would happen when it was just the two of them, and the truth? The silence was deafening. Jenna's fury hung in the air, thick like smoke, as she stared at Marco, her eyes narrowed in contempt. He felt small, but there was a fire igniting within him, flipping the switch from fear to something else, something charged and magnetic. "What's it going to be?" Jenna sneered, stepping closer. The air crackled. "Are you going to run away like the coward you are, or are you going to stay and face the truth?" She leaned in, her breath hot against his skin. "You're not worth my time." Marco gritted his teeth, disgust churning in his stomach. The truth felt heavy, and it made him want to scream. But instead, he stood there, defiantly facing her, heart pounding like a wild drum. "You think you know me? You don't know a damn thing," he spat back, each word infused with adrenaline. Jenna paused, the surprise flicker in her eyes making way for something darker, something more desperate. "Oh, but I do," she replied slowly, tilting her head as if appraising him. "You're just a job title and maybe a little sad. But far from interesting." That sent a ripple through him. Sad. His heart tightened in his chest. The word struck a nerve, and he felt raw and exposed, like his insides were unraveling. "You have no idea what I've been through," he muttered, feeling a lump build in his throat. "Oh really?" Jenna scoffed, a mocking lilt in her voice. "Let us hear it. Enlighten me, O powerful janitor." She stepped back, crossing her arms and smirking as if ready for a performance. The mocking tone pushed him over the edge. "You think money makes you better than me? You're drowning in your own ignorance." The words were out before he could stop them. How liberating it felt to finally let go of the fear. "You dare lecture me?" Jenna's eyes darkened, and for a fleeting moment, he could see the cracks in her facade, the jagged edges of a girl who wore wealth like armor, always afraid of being exposed. "Why do you care so much about status?" Marco spat, this surprisingly flowing out with confidence. "Don't you ever wonder who you could be if you weren't just your father's bank account?" The crowd, now reduced to just shadows, moved back slightly, sensing the fiery confrontation spiraling somewhere deep and fierce. A wave of anticipation rolled through the atmosphere, tightening like a fist. Jenna's expression shifted. Anger morphed into something else. Was it fear? "You think this is a game?" she challenged, voice shaking with a blend of fury and hurt. "You think you can change anything?" "I'm tired of your game," he declared boldly, the weight of his truth radiating off him. "You can't just bully someone and expect them to break. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." The tension reached a breaking point, and for the first time, he saw her hesitate, caught in a crossfire of her own making. But then, with a snap like a twig underfoot, she reached out unexpectedly, hair-like tendrils of tension coiling inwards. "You should be careful what you wish for, Marco. Illusions can become nightmares." And before he could respond, she grasped a handful of his hair, yanking his face closer, eyes blazing with rage. What if I showed everyone who you really are? In that moment, everything froze. The room, the crowd, the world outside, they all faded into a dim blur. Marco's heart thundered in his ears. Would this be the moment that defined him, or the one that broke him altogether? He was trembling, yet somehow still standing tall. "Let go of me!" Marco shouted, feeling the heat of rushing humiliation. But as the crowd leaned forward, drawn by the electric tension, he couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Was he strong enough to face whatever nightmare Jenna unleashed? Before he could fathom the depths of that question, a collective gasp erupted from the remaining patrons. All eyes were glued to the drama unfolding, and Marco's breath caught in his throat, an uncertain storm brewing deep within. What would Jenna do next? And would he be ready for the truth confronting him face to face? The crowd's gasp echoed like a cracked bell, sharp and disorienting. Marco's heart raced, pounding so violently against his rib cage he thought it might break free. He peered into Jenna's eyes, searching for anything that might signal her to release him. But instead, they radiated a twisted satisfaction. "You're so pathetic," she sneered, tightening her grip. "Let everyone see you for what you really are." A surge of humiliation coursed through him, heating his cheeks. Laughter bubbled around him, an ugly chorus of mockery and disdain, each chuckle stinging deeper than the last. He felt exposed, like a raw wound laid out for all to see, and an instinctual desire to flee flickered in the recesses of his mind. But there he stood, anchored by a stubborn resolve he didn't know he possessed. "Get off him!" A voice shouted from the back, slicing through the chaos like a knife. In the sea of familiar faces, there was one that shined like a beacon: Sophie, his closest friend. It struck Marco how strong her voice sounded, like armor in an uncertain world. "Just let him go, Jenna. You're embarrassing yourself," Sophie urged, pushing through the crowd. The roaring laughter quieted, replaced by murmurs of confusion and discomfort. As people shifted uncomfortably in their chairs, Jenna slowly turned her gaze toward Sophie, and Marco felt the pressure in her grip slightly falter. "Stay out of this," she hissed, a flicker of anger igniting again. "This doesn't concern you." But Sophie stepped closer, fearlessness radiating from her. "It does now. Bullying Marco won't make you any more special, Jenna. You're just hurting a good person. You should know better." Every word was a dagger aimed not just at Jenna but at the entire situation. Marco caught the look of doubt creeping onto Jenna's face, and for the first time, he could see the cracks in her bravado. But then a cold smile crept back into her features, revealing a glimmer of her twisted resolve. "Are you really going to defend a janitor?" she asked with disdain, her voice echoing through the stillness now enveloping the room. Marco could feel the weight of every gaze, 1,000 invisible fingers picking at his self-worth. But he swallowed hard, determination surfacing. Somehow, he needed to break this cycle, this power play dance they'd been trapped in. "I'm more than just that," he declared, voice steady despite his trembling hands. "You don't define me." Jenna's eyes flickered with uncertainty, and the crowd shifted again, sensing a change. "Then prove it," she challenged, her arrogance shifting into something more desperate. "Show them who you are, Marco. Or do you want me to do it for you?" The challenge hung in the air, a taut string ready to snap. Would he expose his secret, the weight he had carried alone for so long? Could he share the truth that had kept him shackled in the shadows of society? Sophie caught his eye, her unwavering support a lifeline reaching out to him. "Do it," she encouraged softly, the words brushing against his heart like a gentle breeze. "Take control of your own story." He took a deep breath, the room tilting slightly around him, a tightrope stretched between fear and the pursuit of freedom. With all eyes watching, he could feel the heat of Jenna's challenge mingling with the nervous thrum of possibility. If he didn't take this chance now, he might forever be at the mercy of her cruel narrative. "All right," he murmured, uncertainty curling in his gut. "You want to see who I really am? I'll show you." As he stood there, the spotlight of judgment glaring down, the emotion surged within him. Could he really do this? In that defining moment, uncertainty clenched his stomach, and with every heartbeat, the impending revelation loomed over him like a storm cloud. What did he have left to lose? And just as he opened his mouth to begin, the lights flickered above, casting disorienting shadows across the room. Suddenly, everything spiraled into chaos. The ground trembled beneath him, and gasps erupted anew. What the hell was happening? Marco's heart raced, not just out of fear, but with the electricity of something far greater. Could this be the distraction he needed, or had it just complicated everything further? The storm was brewing faster than he could think, and now he faced another question: what was it that threatened to shatter their reality? The room shuddered, the flickering lights casting jagged shadows that danced across the audience. Marco's pulse quickened, the uncertainty of the moment tightening around him like a vice. He looked up, and for a split second, he wondered if this was a trick. Was Jenna behind this chaos, pushing a button that would send the room into pandemonium? What is going on? Is it an earthquake? Someone shouted from the back, their voice saturated with panic. The murmurs morphed into shouts, confusion and fear flooding the air like a thick fog. Jenna's grip on Marco faltered, surprise etching her features. He seized the moment. With an adrenaline-fueled burst, he ripped his arm free from her grasp. The crowd had spiraled into a stampede of bodies, scrambling for safety, but in that storm of chaos, time felt suspended. He locked eyes with Sophie, who stood rooted to the spot, her brows drawn tight in worry but determination burning within her. Then, in an unreal flash, the lights flickered once more, revealing a figure in the back corner of the room, a man in a dark suit, standing calmly amidst the madness. His eyes glinted with something unfathomable, something that sent a chill racing down Marco's spine. He was too still. Too composed for this chaos. The tremors subsided, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Marco took a cautious step closer to Sophie, who remained resolute, her presence like a fortress against the impending chaos. He whispered, "Should we get out of here? It feels wrong." "No. We can't leave like this." Sophie's voice was fierce, a spark against the growing shadows. "You have to show them, Marco. Whatever it is you've been hiding, this is your chance." Before he could respond, the man in the suit raised his hand, commanding silence as effectively as a clap of thunder. The crowd halted, stunned by the abrupt reversal like marionettes yanked from their strings. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice smooth and laced with authority. "It appears we have experienced a minor electrical malfunction." He look flustered, instead, an unsettling smile spread across his lips, as though he held all the cards. Marco felt his anger bubbling under his skin. This man had the audacity to pretend everything was fine when it was clear they were on the brink of an explosive revelation. But hidden deep beneath that anger was fear of truth, of exposure. It swirled in his chest like a venomous snake ready to strike. "Before we return to our festivities," the man continued, "let us take a moment to reflect on the meaning of integrity, of honesty, and how it plays a role in each of our lives." A ripple of unease swept through the audience. Marco suddenly felt like a spotlight was being shone directly on him, illuminating the truth entwined in shadows. He looked to Jenna, who was eyeing the stranger with suspicion. But her posture was tense. Was she scared? "What does he know?" Marco mouthed to Sophie, the panic rising sharp in his throat. "I don't know," she whispered back, biting her lip. "But something doesn't feel right. We need to stay alert." As if reading their thoughts, the man shifted his gaze, scanning the crowd, his eyes landing squarely on Marco. "And you, young man," he called out, his voice echoing, sending a wave of dread crashing over Marco. "What truth do you carry that might just shake the foundations of this gathering?" Every heart in the room appeared to skip a beat, the tension thick enough to cut. Marco's throat tightened, thoughts racing. Why now? Was it fate or a cruel twist of chance? With the weight of 1,000 eyes piercing through him, Marco felt his legs tremble. He searched for courage, for something to say that might redirect the spotlight, but it was as if he were trapped in a confession booth while the entire world stopped to listen. The crowd leaned in closer, breaths held, ready for whatever storm was about to unravel. Marco was left with one question that circled in his mind like a hawk stalking prey: would he embrace his truth, or would he let it be stolen by this strange puppeteer in the suit? The floor shifted beneath him once more. Something was about to break and he could either shatter along with it, or take control. What would he choose? Marco's heart thundered against his ribcage, each beat like a countdown to some inevitable disaster. The man in the suit was watching him with glazed curiosity, not a hint of concern for the chaos unfolding around them. It felt surreal, as if he were the only one aware of the stakes. And yet, he was frozen, stricken by sheer fear. "Speak!" the man commanded, his voice cutting through the murmurs and gasps like a knife. The audience leaned forward, collective breaths held in anticipation, excitement mixed with dread sparkling in their eyes. Marco swallowed hard. Words felt heavy, like stones lodged in his throat. He clenched his fists, nails biting into his palms. He wanted to shout, to deny this twisted moment, but fear chained him to silence. "Yes, Marco." Sophie's voice broke into his frenzied thoughts. "Tell them. This is your moment." The edges of his vision blurred as he felt Sophie's encouragement collide with an unwavering instinct to retreat. The truth, his truth, was a double-edged sword. It could either liberate or destroy him. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted Jenna, her face pale, eyes wide. He needed to know if she was complicit. Was she in on this twisted game orchestrated by the man in the suit? Marco, the man crooned, a hint of amusement creeping into his voice. "You wouldn't want to let your chance slip away into obscurity. Imagine the freedom that comes from honesty. Imagine how powerful you could become." The words wrapped around him like vines, tightening, squeezing the air from his lungs. Pressure coiled in his chest. Marco's mind raced as these thoughts ping-ponged back and forth: honesty or deception, freedom or prison. The crowd was an ocean of anticipation, waves crashing against the shore of his resolve. "Tell the truth." Someone shouted from the back, eliciting nervous glances and whispers, some in support, others in condemnation. Tension in the room escalated, the murmurs forming a hazy background melody that only amplified Marco's pulse. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded, breaking through the din. A woman in the front staggered backward, her chair collapsing as she fell. Gasps filled the air, momentarily pulling everyone's attention away from Marco. He took the opportunity, heart racing as he moved closer to Sophie. "Did you see that?" he whispered, wild eyes darting around. "This isn't just about me anymore. Something is seriously off." And then the lights flickered again, plunging the room into darkness for a moment before flickering back to life. In the brief gap, Marco caught sight of the man's exacting features, almost ghoulish now, illuminated by the dim bulbs overhead, an unsettling grin still plastered on his face. "Ah, a little bit of drama never harmed anyone," the man said, almost cheerfully. "But Marco, let us not play coy. They want to hear from you. We all want to hear your truth." His voice dripped with mockery, but there was an underlying tension to his words that sent shivers down Marco's spine. The crowd was like a pack of hungry wolves ready to devour the raw flesh of scandal. Someone from the back shouted, "Just tell us what you're hiding." Marco's heart raced. Panic flared in him. What if he spoke? What if he didn't? Could silence strip him of his agency? Or could a confession shatter their expectations, flipping the narrative? "Enough." The man in the suit's voice boomed again, sounding impatient. "We have the power to change the world, Marco. Don't let us down." At that moment, a vision flashed in Marco's mind, a memory he had buried deep. He stood at the edge of a cliff, contemplating the leap, questioning the fall. The choice was his: leap into honesty or allow himself to be pulled down into darkness. As the crowd held its breath, Marco's mouth dried, and he felt the world tilt. He didn't know if he could walk that tightrope. But clarity pierced the chaos. Someone had to take a risk. With resolve igniting in his veins, he straightened up, heart pounding like a war drum. He began, only to be interrupted by a sudden crash, a loud thud that echoed ominously as the lights flickered again. The audience gasped collectively, eyes wide. Marco turned, his breath hitching in his throat as all eyes darted to the source of the sound, where shadows loomed large, and that S when he saw it. What had just entered from the shadows was nothing short of a nightmare, and it was coming for him. What would they do now, facing the darkness that had been lurking in plain sight? What truth would emerge from the depths? The figure stepped into the dim light, revealing itself a monstrous silhouette that sent a shiver of dread skittering through Marco's spine. It was a being shrouded in a tattered cloak, its face obscured by a hood that hung low, casting ominous shadows that danced with every movement. A long, skeletal hand protruded from the fabric, pointing directly at Marco. Gasps echoed through the crowd, their anticipation morphing into horror. A woman screamed. "What is that?" Panic erupted as people instinctively shrank back, their chairs scraping against the floor, the sound a cacophony of fear. The man in the suit remained unnaturally calm amidst the chaos, his smile unwavering. "Ah, the harbinger of truth has arrived. An unexpected guest, indeed." His tone dripped with mockery, as if he relished the turmoil unfolding before him. Marco's mind raced. The cloaked figure moved closer, gliding through the space with an eerie grace. This wasn't just a confrontation, it felt like a reckoning. He could feel the weight of every gaze, the desperation for him to take a stand, yet dread wrapped around him tightly. "What do you want?" Marco found himself whispering, his voice barely escaping his lips. His heart thundered, a relentless drum echoing the urgency of the moment. The figure's hand gestured again, revealing in its grip a gleaming knife that shone cruelly in the flickering light. Ropes of tension spiraled tighter. Eyes widened with disbelief, speculations darting among the crowd. Marco felt the air grow thick, each breath was like a gulp of ice-cold water. "Your truth is a slippery fish, Marco," the figure rasped, its voice a chilling whisper that echoed in the stillness. The tone was soft, almost coaxing, yet laced with menace. "Reveal your secrets, or suffer the consequences of your silence." "Marco." Sophie's voice broke through, strained with concern. "Don't listen to it. Just tell them what you know." The words wrapped around him like lifelines thrown in turbulent waters, but as Marco's eyes locked with the figure, a jolt of cold realization struck him. This was more than an unknown menace, it was a reflection of what he feared most, his own truth. If he confessed, would he truly find liberation? Or would the consequences be even worse than he could imagine? "Don't. You can't let it manipulate you." Jenna shouted, her face pale yet fierce, an ember of defiance igniting in her eyes. The crowd hummed with energy as they too felt the fight stirring within. Time seemed to stretch, a taut wire ready to snap. Marco could feel the urge to flee curling in his gut, but his legs remained anchored. What would happen if he let this creature expose his deepest fears? "Truth is not a monster," the figure hissed, its voice growing louder, more frantic. "Embrace your fears, Marco. Don't let them trap you. Understanding comes from confrontation." In that moment, the lights flickered violently again, plunging the room into darkness before erupting back to life. Marco's breath caught in his throat as he felt a presence, something faint brushing against the back of his mind, urging him to remember. "Remember who you are," a whisper, softer than a breath, broke through. It was a voice he knew, the voice of someone lost, someone he loved. Everything sharpened around him. He needed to decide. Was he going to remain the hunted, or would he fight to claim his truth? All eyes were fixed on him, the crowd like a dam ready to break, holding back the flood of secrets and fears. Marco's palms were slick, heart racing, but he felt a small spark of courage igniting. Taking a deep breath, he opened his mouth, almost ready to spill the words, when the lights went out completely. Complete darkness swallowed the room. A gasp erupted from the audience. Something shifted in the silence. The crowd was lost in panic, but Marco stood still, caught in a moment that could change everything. Had he just sealed his fate or found a way to break free? What would come next in this suffocating void of shadows? The darkness swallowed them whole, an abyss heavy with uncertainty. Marco could feel the weight of silence pressing down on him, a cocoon of tension that seemed to stretch endlessly. Panic erupted among guests as they fumbled for their phones to shed some light. Marco's thoughts raced, desperately searching for clarity in a world turned upside down. Here, this way. Sophie's firm voice pierced through the chaos. She edged closer, her phone illuminating her fierce features. We can't let this monster dictate what happens here. There she stood, a lighthouse, guiding him back through the sea of confusion. If the truth is what they fear, then let us give it to them. Marco's heartbeat surged, newfound courage bubbling to the surface. The darkness had conjured his deepest insecurities, fear of exposure, ridicule, but as he felt his friend beside him, that fear began to dissipate. The lights flickered back on, bathing the room in harsh fluorescent light. The cloaked figure remained still, and Marco squared his shoulders, ready to confront his demons. You want to see who I really am? He said, voice steady, clear even against the most horrified whispers echoing through the crowd. Fine. Here goes nothing. A heavy silence pleaded for him to elaborate, to peel back the layers as the cloaked figure loomed ominously. In that instance, Marco felt the veil lifting, a release of pain and shame. I was abandoned. He let the words drop like stones. As a kid, I was thrown into foster care. I've struggled. I've fought for every scrap of respect I could get. I'm not just a cleaner, I'm someone who has been through hell and back. Gasps filled the air, and he could see Jenna's expression shift, uncertainty creeping into her features as the crowd buzzed with astonishment. Marco's gaze clashed with the figure's, the knife shimmering ominously in its grasp. You take me for a nobody, he continued, anger igniting within. But I'm here. I'm standing up. And I won't let you define my worth. Sophie beamed with pride, the warmth of her support enveloping him. The audience began to shift again, whispers of admiration blooming like wildflowers in a barren field. The figure's arm dropped, the knife clattering onto the polished floor, a weapon rendered useless in light of Marco's truth. Fear flickered in its hidden eyes. This isn't the end, you know, it rasped, the imperiousness fading. Maybe not, Marco shot back, but it's the beginning for so many of us. We deserve to be seen. With that, the oppressive weight of judgment cracked like glass, and Marco surged forward, unwilling to let the moment slip away. He met Jenna's gaze head-on, catching her off guard. I'm not less than you, he declared, the fire radiating from his soul. Your wealth doesn't mean you can take joy in hurting others. And it's all a facade, isn't it? You're just a scared little girl in a big, shiny world. Jenna recoiled, the truth striking her like lightning. A flush crept into her cheeks. For the first time, a glimpse of vulnerability flickered across her face. The energy in the room began to shift, uncertainty mingling with empathy. The man in the suit watched with cold detachment, tension creeping back into his features. This won't end here, he muttered as if trying to salvage his control over the unfolding reality. It ends the moment we choose to no longer play your twisted game, Marco shot back defiantly. The audience stirred, their murmurs turning into a swell of support, people who had been waiting for a chance to lift their voices and rise against the oppression of privilege that had ruled for too long. Jenna's bravado faltered, a strange mix of anger and fear swirling behind her eyes. The strength of Marco's words rattled her confidence, exposing the layers of pain and insecurity she hid beneath the surface like everyone else. You don't know me. She shouted, but the defiance felt hollow. I'm starting to learn that you are just a girl hiding in a gilded cage. The real world isn't kind, and neither are you, Marco replied, heart racing but clear-headed. The crowd, sheeple no longer, began to speak out, standing up for themselves. For him, the tides had shifted. Enough. Jenna finally snapped, her voice finally breaking, faltering on edges of uncertainty. She took a step back, losing her grip on the ghostly image she'd built. This party is over. But the crowd roared in defiance, voices rising in unity. This was not about the party anymore. It was about truth. And just like that, a wave of understanding washed over Jenna, bringing the cacophony of the party to a halt. The facade crumbled around her like fragile glass, the laughter replaced by whispers of solidarity and hope. No one could hide here anymore, not her, and certainly not Marco. With each ounce of resolve pouring into the room, the chains of tradition and cruelty began to crack apart. Marco turned to Sophie, a smile blooming as he saw her eyes gleaming with pride. "You helped me find my strength," he whispered. "And you helped others find theirs," she replied, squeezing his hand. As the storm of emotion settled, the audience erupted into applause, wild and untamed. This was more than applause, it was acceptance. Marco allowed himself to breathe, feeling a weight lift from his chest. The truth had freed him, and in that moment, he felt lighter than air. Outside the lavish estate, the sun began to set, and with it a new era dawned. "This is just the beginning," he murmured, looking around at the crowd, friends, allies, all standing tall. As they began to filter out of the estate, Marco felt a sense of belonging envelop him, a warmth he had long missed. Jenna's voice trailed behind him, tinged with something he couldn't quite identify, but it was undercut by empathy, a sliver of compassion that meant she might yet realize a need for change too. And as Marco stepped through the doors into a world he had finally found his place in, he knew this was the moment, a promise of strength, a testament to honesty, and the unwavering power that came with standing up for oneself. "Now, before you go, I've got to say this is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. We've got more coming just for you. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, and let's get this story in front of everyone. Don't wait even one more second, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. I want to hear every thought you have. And lastly, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support is what keeps this channel alive, and only true fans understand how crucial your actions are. Let us elevate this community together.